Another week of NFL football has been played, and though there were some upsets, this was actually a fairly normal week, at least compared to last week. That was until Monday Night Football. So today I will be looking at every game played this week, and then looking into the top 5 storylines coming out of this week. Starting on Thursday night, the Eagles vs. Giants. Well, this was an outcome that nobody was expecting, not even Giants fans. But in hindsight, we should have expected something like this to happen. The Eagles' offense is atrocious. It's not the personnel. This is the same offense that bullied everyone in the playoffs last season. The play calling isn't working and it shows no real consistency. Either Saquon isn't the same player or this offensive scheme is just bad. They need to figure this out quickly or this is going to be a long season. But for Giants fans, it won't. Dart and Scatterboo are a fun duo to watch. Wonder what will happen when they get neighbors back next year. Broncos vs. Jets. Oh wow, what an interesting first quarter. I'm sure this game will have some scoring.
Nope.
Wow, what a fun game to watch. I know London games can get weird, but come on, what is this? It was pretty much unwatchable. I get Denver's defense was good, but Justin Fields was really bad. Their net passing yards this game was -10. You threw for more passing yards than the Jets offense this week. The Broncos get one game closer to the division lead, and the Jets are still looking for the first win, whenever that is. Cardinals vs. Colts. This was quite the game despite the Cardinals not having Kyler Murray. Each team traded blow after blow. The lead changed hands after every drive in the second half, and it came down to one fourth down play at the end. And it didn't go the Cardinals' way. The Colts may have gotten away with a hold, but the ball was very off target. The Colts continue to roll. Chargers vs. Dolphins. The Chargers looked like they would cruise to a comfortable win. They held a 2-score lead going into the fourth quarter. But surprisingly, the Dolphins actually had some fight in them and went on back-to-back scoring drives to take the lead. But in the end, the Chargers somehow didn't charger it and got themselves into field goal range to win the game in chaotic fashion. Patriots vs. Saints. An actually pretty solid game for the first half. Both teams traded scoring drives, and both quarterbacks actually looked pretty good. But for whatever reason, they just forgot there was a second half to play and nobody showed up. Patriots take care of business, and the Saints continue to play everybody close. Also, the Patriots' hate for Travion Henderson needs to be studied. Browns vs. Steelers. Not really a whole lot to talk about here. This was the expected outcome. The Steelers' offense did its job, and the Rodgers-Metcalf connection is in full swing. The Steelers' defense was dominant, shutting down Judkins and getting to Gabriel 6 times. The Browns never really had an opportunity to do anything this game, and the Steelers are the only team in the AFC North to be winning anything. Cowboys vs. Panthers. 6 weeks into the season, the Panthers are at 500 with a 3-3 record. After how they looked in the first 2 weeks, I don't think anyone would have predicted that. Apparently losing Chuba Hubbard for a few weeks was the best thing that could have happened to the Panthers because Rico Dowdle put up his second 200-plus yard game in a row. Dak is doing whatever he can to carry the Cowboys, but the defense can't stop a breeze. At this rate, the Cowboys could finish with the top offense in the NFL and still end with the losing record because of this defense. Seahawks vs. Jaguars. What could have been one of the best games this weekend ended up not being that. Ended up being a defensive showdown with a lot of sloppiness from both teams. There were 17 penalties this game, but the difference was in the trenches. Despite not doing much all game, the Seahawks didn't give up much pressure and broke through with a few big plays. The Seahawks defensive line terrorized Trevor all day. 39 pressures and 7 sacks. Difficult to win a game when your offensive line can't block. The Seahawks continue their winning streak on the road. Rams vs. Ravens. Honestly, the best performance all year from the Ravens defense, which is pretty surprising since the Rams have been rolling on offense. But some bad news for the Rams is Puka got injured this game. Fortunately, it's not that serious, but could cause him to miss next week against the Jaguars. The Ravens, meanwhile, are in a tough spot. They sit at the bottom of the division and are 4 games behind the Steelers. They basically need to run the table in the second half of the season, but fortunately, they get Lamar after the bye. Titans vs. Raiders. This was one of the games of all time. Quite the second quarter, but the Raiders defense dominated a bad Titans offense. The Raiders offense did enough to win. I think we will be wondering all season how the Titans managed to win a game. Even the Titans are wondering that. They fired their head coach for it. Bengals vs. Packers. The Packers finally won a game they were supposed to. They wanted to make it closer than it needed to be, but they got the job done in the end. Meanwhile, Joe Flacco actually did okay for his new team. Even if the Bengals don't really win any games after this, it could at least make some fantasy owners happy. 49ers versus Buccaneers. This may as well be called the Injury Bowl with how beat up these two teams are. The 49ers were missing Kittle, Purdy, Pearsall, Bosa, and others. Juwan Jennings should apparently be in a hospital bed, and they lost Fred Warner for the season in this game. The Bucs were missing Bucky Irving, Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, and lost their star receiver in Emeka Egbuka this game. But what does that matter when Baker Mayfield is making plays like this to their fourth string wide receiver? Baker is making a strong case for MVP right now. Lions vs Chiefs. The Chiefs get back on track with a huge win over the Lions. After a little bit of a stumble in Jacksonville, the Chiefs come home and handled the Lions. The Chiefs' offense has been rolling the past few weeks, and they get their number one receiver back next week in Rashee Rice. They need all the help they can get because they were still 1.5 games behind the Chargers. Meanwhile, the Lions got humbled a little bit. They beat up on some bad teams, and they were crowned the best team in the league. They finally faced a good team and got beat up. They are still absolutely contenders, but they have a big test against Tampa next week. Bills vs Falcons. There are two sides to every contest. The Falcons are starting to look more consistent on offense. Their top players flash their elite playmaking ability, and I have to give credit to the Falcons defense. They pressured Josh Allen a lot and got to him 4 times. They even forced 2 turnovers. Meanwhile, the Bills were far from perfect. They don't look like the Super Bowl contenders they were billed as. A lot of games are left, and this bye couldn't have come sooner for the Bills. Finally, Bears vs Commanders. A rematch from last year that jump-started the Commanders' playoff run and caused the Bears to crumble. This game ended up being the opposite of that game. The Commanders looked poised to win the game until a botched handoff allowed the Bears to get one more opportunity. And they took it to win the game. We will see if the exact scenario that happened last year happens again here. Now that we took a brief look at every game, now I want to look into the top 5 storylines from week 6. The first story I want to get into is the Giants upsetting the Eagles on Thursday. After the Giants lost against the Saints, a lot of people, including myself, thought we overestimated the Giants in their win against the Chargers. But turns out we should be giving more credit to the Saints because the Giants dominated the Eagles. They have entered a new era with Jackson Dart as their QB and Cam Scatterbo as their running back. Dart doesn't really have any receivers to throw to, but he makes it work with his legs. It's definitely possible he got a concussion in this game, but when your head coach is trying to save his job, you gotta do what you gotta do. Scatterbo also runs like he's trying to get a concussion every play, but you have to love the energy he brings to every week. But you also have to give credit to the Giants defense. They were able to hold the Eagles to just 17 points and force 2 turnovers. The season outlook for the Giants isn't the greatest. They have a pretty tough schedule ahead of them. There's a small chance the Giants can sneak into the wild card, but with how one-dimensional this offense is, I find it unlikely. But the future outlook for this team is bright. If they can at least get 7 wins, there's a chance Brian Daboll keeps his job. That's if they're at least exciting to watch every week. Now to another upset that happened on Sunday. The Panthers over the Cowboys. Yes, the Cowboys defense stinks, but you still need to capitalize on it. And the Panthers somehow managed to do it. Bryce Young threw his weekly interception, but after that was pretty solid. A 3-touchdown day is not a bad day in the office. He didn't throw for many yards, but when Rico Dowdle is just gashing the Cowboys, don't really need to. Also, what a crazy run from Dowdle. He got over 200 rushing yards last week, and to be honest, I thought that was a fluke. A guy coming off the bench, putting up crazy numbers against a bad Dolphins defense. Granted, he also played against a bad Cowboys defense, but it's hard to get over 200 scrimmage yards against any defense. It's rare for a player to have 1 200-yard game in a season, let alone 2. In a competitive NFC, you need any edge you can get. As of right now, it looks like the Bucs have the NFC South, but you never know how things may shake out. There's still a lot of season left. So having a playmaker like Dowdle will help the Panthers a lot this season. It could even help them backdoor their way into the playoffs if he can continue to perform, as well as other players on their team like their rookie wide receiver Tet McMillan, and if Bryce Young can continue playing well. Speaking of the NFC South, let's talk about the division leader, the Buccaneers. They are currently off to one of their best starts in franchise history, with this being only the 6th time they've started 5-1 or better. Despite accruing a lot of injuries, they have been able to win games, in large part due to Baker Mayfield. His growth in Tampa Bay has been impressive to watch. Each year he has gotten better, and now this year he's in MVP conversations. Pretty impressive for a guy who's on his 4th team. I will say it's good that the Buccaneers have finally won a game where they didn't need a last-second drive to win it. The Bucs actually held the lead for the majority of the game against the 49ers, but even in a game where heroics weren't needed, you still saw Baker flash. An impressive play and throw to their 4th-string wide receiver for a 45-yard touchdown. These are the types of plays that get you into the MVP conversation. There's a lot of season left, so we'll see if he's able to maintain this level of play. He will certainly need to, since the Panthers and Falcons are nipping at their heels. Any slip-ups and they could risk falling behind. Let's move over to the AFC. The Chiefs look like they're rolling again. I talked about them 2 weeks ago after their win over the Ravens and how they looked like they were getting back on track. Last week they stumbled against the Jaguars, but it wasn't because of the offense. And this week their defense stepped up and their offense continues to roll. Granted, the Lions defense was pretty banged up, but you still have to play what's in front of you. I would be more concerned about the Chiefs if their offense couldn't put up numbers against the Lions. But the Chiefs needed this win. They have a difficult schedule ahead of them. They have a gimme game against the Raiders next week, but then they have a tough 4-game stretch against the Commanders, Bills, Broncos, and Colts. If they didn't get to at least 3-3 by now, they would have a rough time catching up in the division race. If they can get to 4-3 after the game against the Raiders, they could go 2-2 in that 4-game stretch and still be okay. The back end of their schedule opens up a bit, and they get rematches against the teams that are currently ahead of them. The Chiefs may not be a lock to win the AFC like in previous years, but they still remain as top contenders, especially if they can land a trade for a running back. And finally, a pretty big story that happened while I was making this video. The Titans head coach Brian Callahan was fired. This was something that everyone could sense was coming. He was coaching for his job this season, and getting off to a 1-5 start is hardly a good start. And there's nothing to get excited with this Titans team. They look flat week in and week out. And honestly, that win against the Cardinals was as fluky as it can get. It took the Cardinals making cartoonish mistakes for the Titans to win that game. But right now, the Titans are completely dysfunctional. Every year, they are firing someone, and it isn't making the situation better. It's a bad look for anyone who might be even interested in this job. In the short term, yes, Titans fans will be happy, but I'd argue this is not the right timing. The Titans aren't competing for anything this year. The division is out of reach, and there are a lot of other teams with way better odds at a wildcard spot. The better move for them would be to just let Brian Callahan tank this team for a top 5 pick, so you can inject some talent into this team. At least then it'll appear that you actually give some time to your coaches to maybe turn things around. But that will do it for this video. If you've enjoyed it, please leave a like and sub. It lets me know you guys actually like this sort of video. Other than that, I will see you guys in my next video. Bye!